The chain lock rattled hard against the doorframe again. Sienna Blake pressed her back to the wall, one hand covering her 4-year-old daughter's mouth, the other gripping her phone so tight her knuckles went white. Outside, a man's voice slurred threats through the wood. "Open the door, Sienna. We're not done." But they were. She told him that 6 weeks ago. The problem? He didn't believe her. And now, at 2 o'clock in the morning, with Lily trembling against her chest, Sienna realized something terrifying. The lock wasn't going to hold. She needed help, real help. The kind that didn't run when things got hard. Now, let me take you back to where this all started. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. And if you believe people still show up when it matters, hit that like button. You're about to meet a man who proved it. The apartment building on Lenox Street had seen better decades. Brick facade chipped at the corners, gutters sagging under years of deferred maintenance, and a front door that didn't quite close all the way unless you knew to lift and push at the same time. It wasn't the worst place in the city, but it wasn't trying to win awards either. It was the kind of building where people landed when they were rebuilding or when they'd run out of other options. Darius Mitchell had worked there for 3 years. He knew every squeaky step on the back stairwell, every outlet that sparked if you plugged in too many things, every tenant who paid on time, and everyone who didn't. At 32, he'd become the kind of maintenance guy people actually trusted. Not because he talked a big game, but because he showed up when he said he would and fixed things right the first time. He wasn't tall, but he was solid. The kind of build that came from lifting toolboxes and carrying drywall up narrow staircases. His skin was a warm, deep brown. His black hair cropped close with tight curls at the top, and his dark brown hands were scarred in the places that came from working with metal and wood for too long without gloves. He didn't smile much, not because he was unfriendly, but because he'd learned that most people didn't need charm. They needed competence. As a black man working in buildings like this, he'd learned calm and follow-through got remembered longer than talk ever did. Today's work order was simple. Unit 3C, door frame damaged. Tenant reports lock not holding properly. Darius grabbed his toolbox from the maintenance closet on the first floor, checked that he had wood filler, longer screws, and a spare strike plate, then headed up the stairwell. The third floor was quieter than the others. Fewer kids, fewer arguments bleeding through thin walls. He liked that. When he reached 3C, he knocked twice, firm but not aggressive. Maintenance. There was a pause long enough that he almost knocked again. Then he heard the soft shuffle of footsteps, the metallic slide of a chain lock being tested, and a woman's voice. Steady but cautious. "ID, please." Darius didn't flinch. He pulled his building badge from his chest pocket and held it up to the peephole. A few seconds passed. Then the chain slid free, and the door opened just enough for him to see her face. She was younger than he'd expected, mid-20s maybe. Dark hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, no makeup, wearing an oversized sweatshirt that looked like it had been through 100 wash cycles. But it was her eyes that caught him, sharp, alert, like she was running a full background check just by looking at him. "You're Darius?" she asked. "Yeah, you put in the work order." She nodded, stepped back, and opened the door wider. "Come in. It's the frame by the lock." Darius stepped inside, and the first thing he noticed wasn't the damage. It was the apartment itself, small, clean, a couch that had been reupholstered with a blanket to cover the worn spots. A folding table near the window with a child's coloring book and a cup full of broken crayons. A shelf with 3 picture books and a stuffed giraffe missing one ear. And then he saw the door frame. The wood around the strike plate had splintered. Not from age, not from settling, from force. Someone had hit this door hard. Maybe with a shoulder, maybe with a kick. The screws had pulled halfway out of the frame, and the paint around the damage was cracked in a starburst pattern. Darius crouched down, ran his fingers along the split wood, and kept his voice even. This happened recently. The woman, Sienna, according to the work order, crossed her arms and leaned against the kitchen counter. She didn't answer right away, just watched him like she was deciding how much to say. "Couple nights ago," she finally said. Darius nodded, didn't push. He'd seen this kind of damage before. He knew what it meant. I'm going to need to replace part of the frame, he said, standing up. The wood's compromised. I can patch it, but it won't hold if someone tries this again. Sienna's jaw tightened. Then don't patch it. Do it right. All right. He went back downstairs, grabbed a section of 2x4 from the supply room, a handsaw, and a box of 3-inch screws. When he came back up, Sienna had moved to the couch. She had her phone in her lap, but she wasn't looking at it, just sitting, thinking. Darius got to work. He removed the damaged section of the frame, measured twice, cut once, and fitted the new piece into place. He used wood glue and countersunk the screws deep so they'd bite into the stud behind the drywall. While he worked, he could feel her watching him. You do this a lot?" she asked after a while. "Fix doors?" "Yeah, more than I'd like." She didn't respond to that, just nodded. Darius installed a new strike plate, heavy duty, the kind they used in commercial buildings. He tested the lock 3 times, made sure the bolt seated fully, then stepped back and wiped his hands on his jeans. "Try it," he said. Sienna stood up, walked over, and turned the deadbolt. It slid home with a solid thunk. She tested it again, then a 3rd time. "That'll hold?" she asked. "It'll hold." She exhaled just a little, like she'd been holding her breath for days. "Thank you." Darius started packing up his tools. "You need anything else while I'm here? Outlet not working? Faucet dripping?" "No, just the door." He nodded, picked up his toolbox, and turned toward the hallway. But before he could leave, Sienna spoke again. "Can I ask you something?" Darius stopped, looked back. "Sure." She hesitated. Her fingers twisted the edge of her sweatshirt sleeve. If someone tried to get in again, would that lock actually stop them? Darius set the toolbox down. He walked back to the door, pointed at the frame. "This wood is solid now. The screws go 3 inches into the stud. The strike plate's steel, not aluminum. If someone hits this door, they're going to hurt themselves before they get through." "But it's not impossible." "No," Darius said honestly. "It's not impossible, but it's a hell of a lot harder than it was 2 days ago." Sienna nodded slowly. She looked at the door like she was memorizing every inch of it. "Okay." Darius picked up his toolbox again. This time he made it to the hallway, but as he turned to leave, he heard her voice one more time. Quieter now. "Hey." He looked back. "If I call the office again, will they send you?" Darius met her eyes. There was something in them now, something that wasn't just fear. It was hope. Small, fragile, but real. "Yeah," he said. "They'll send me." She nodded, and for the first time since he'd walked in, she almost smiled. 3 days later, Darius got another work order for 3C bathroom sink slow to drain. He knocked, same routine, same pause, same careful check through the peephole. But this time, when Sienna opened the door, there was a little girl standing behind her. She couldn't have been more than 4. Curly brown hair, big eyes, wearing pajamas with cartoon dinosaurs on them. She peeked around her mother's leg and stared at Darius with the kind of unfiltered curiosity only kids have. "Who's that?" the girl whispered. "That's Darius," Sienna said, resting a hand on her daughter's head. "He fixes things." The girl considered this. "Can he fix my bike?" Sienna's mouth twitched. "He's here for the sink, Lily." Darius crouched down so he was eye level with the kid. "What's wrong with your bike?" Lily's face lit up. "The wheel doesn't go, doesn't spin." "Uh-huh, probably just needs oil," Darius said. "I can take a look after I'm done with the sink." Lily looked up at her mom, eyes wide with hope. Sienna hesitated, then nodded. "If you have time." "I got time." The sink was an easy fix. Hair clog. Darius cleared it in 10 minutes, tested the drain, and made sure everything flowed clean. While he worked, Lily sat on the bathroom floor and asked him questions. "Do you have a little girl?" "No." "Do you have a dog?" "Nope." "Do you like dinosaurs?" Darius glanced at her pajamas. "I do now." She grinned. When he finished with the sink, he followed Lily out to the small concrete patio behind the building. There was a rusty pink bike with training wheels leaning against the wall. The back wheel was locked up, chain tangled around the axle. Darius flipped the bike over, untangled the chain, wiped it down, and used a little WD-40 from his toolbox. 5 minutes later, the wheel spun smooth. "Try it," he said. Lily climbed on, and Darius held the back of the seat while she pedaled in a small circle. Her laugh was bright and loud and completely unguarded. Sienna stood in the doorway watching. When Darius let go and Lily kept pedaling on her own, Sienna's expression softened. You didn't have to do that, she said when he walked back over. I know, but you did anyway. Darius shrugged. Kid needed her bike fixed. Sienna studied him for a long moment. Then she said something he wasn't expecting. You want some coffee? They sat on the patio while Lily rode circles around them. The coffee was instant and the mugs didn't match, but it didn't matter. They talked about small things at first. The building, the neighborhood, how long she'd been living there. About 8 months, Sienna said. It's not much, but it's mine. That matters. Yeah, it does. There was a pause. Darius took a sip of his coffee. Can I ask you something? Sienna said. Go ahead. When you fixed the door, did you know what happened? Darius looked at her. I guessed. And you didn't ask. I didn't need to. You'd tell me if you wanted to. Sienna's fingers tightened around her mug. She looked out at Lily, who was now making engine noises as she pedaled. It was my ex, she said quietly. Lily's dad. He showed up drunk, started pounding on the door, saying I couldn't keep her from him, that I was being selfish. Her voice wavered, but she kept going. I told him to leave. He didn't, so I called the police, but by the time they got here, he was gone. Did they file a report? Yeah, for all the good it did. Darius didn't say anything, just listened. He hasn't come back since, Sienna continued, but I keep thinking, what if he does? What if the lock doesn't hold? What if Lily's home? Her voice cracked on the last word. Darius set his mug down. You got my number from the office? Sienna nodded. Use it, he said. If he shows up again, don't wait for the police. Call me first. She looked at him, surprised. Why would you do that? Because you shouldn't have to be afraid in your own home. Sienna's eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. She just nodded. Okay. Over the next 2 weeks, Darius came by 3 more times. Leaky faucet, loose outlet cover, overhead light that wouldn't turn on. Every time Sienna let him in a little faster. Every time Lily asked him more questions. And every time Darius stayed a little longer. One evening, after he'd replaced a busted light switch, Sienna asked him something that had clearly been on her mind. Do you date? Darius looked up from his toolbox. Why? Just curious. He closed the toolbox, leaned against the counter. Not much. Work keeps me busy. That's not what I asked. Darius smiled just barely. Yeah, I date. When I meet someone worth the effort. Sienna nodded slowly, then quieter. Would you ever date a single mom? The question hung in the air. Darius didn't rush his answer. He thought about it. Really thought about it. If I respected her, he said finally, yeah, I would. Even though it's complicated, everything worth doing is complicated. Sienna looked at him for a long moment. Most guys hear single mom and run. Then they're idiots. She laughed, short and surprised. You say that now. I mean it now. Sienna's smile faded. She looked down at her hands. I don't have time for games, Darius. I can't do the whole let's see where this goes thing. I have a daughter. I work nights. I'm exhausted all the time. I'm not easy. I'm not looking for easy. Then what are you looking for? Darius met her eyes. Someone real. The air between them shifted. Sienna swallowed hard. I have to put Lily to bed, she said quietly. Okay. He grabbed his toolbox and headed for the door, but before he left, Sienna called out. Darius. He turned. Thank you for all of it. He nodded. Anytime. And he meant it. For the next few days, everything was quiet. No work orders, no texts. Darius went about his usual routine, fixing boilers, patching drywall, replacing smoke detector batteries. But in the back of his mind, he kept thinking about Sienna, about Lily, about the way Sienna had looked at him when she asked if he'd ever date a single mom. He didn't regret what he'd said, but he wondered if he'd pushed too hard, if he'd made her uncomfortable. Then, at 2:13 a.m. on a Tuesday, his phone buzzed. Sienna, he's here. Darius sat up in bed, heart pounding. Darius, where? Sienna, outside my door, pounding. Lily's awake. I'm scared. Darius was already pulling on his jeans. Darius, lock the bedroom door. I'm coming. He didn't bother with shoes, just grabbed his phone, his keys, and ran. The building was 4 blocks from his apartment. Darius sprinted the whole way, his breath coming hard, his mind running through every possible scenario. When he hit the stairwell, he took the steps 2 at a time. By the time he reached the 3rd floor, he could hear it, a man's voice, loud, slurred, angry. Open the damn door, Sienna! I know you're in there! Bang, bang, bang. The The sound of fists or maybe a shoulder slamming into the door. Darius turned the corner and saw him. Mid-30s, unshaven, wearing a stained jacket and swaying slightly on his feet. The guy's knuckles were red from hitting the door, and his eyes were wild. "Hey," Darius said, voice low and steady. The guy spun around. "Who the hell are you?" "The building maintenance. You need to leave." The guy laughed, bitter and mean. "This is between me and my family. Get lost. She's not your family anymore, and you're trespassing." The guy took a step forward, fists clenched. "You don't know shit." Darius didn't move. He just pulled out his phone and started recording. "What are you doing?" the guy snapped. "Making sure there's evidence when the cops show up." The guy's face twisted. "You think you're some kind of hero?" "No," Darius said calmly. "I just think you should leave before this gets worse for you." Behind the door, he heard Sienna's voice, shaky but clear. "Darius?" "I'm here," he called back. "You and Lily stay inside. Door stays locked." The ex's face went red. "You don't get to tell me." "Yeah, I do," Darius interrupted. He stepped between the guy and the door, phone still recording. "You've got two choices. Walk away now or wait for the police and catch a charge. Your call." For a moment, the guy looked like he might swing. His shoulders tensed, his breathing quickened, but then he heard it, the distant wail of sirens. Sienna had already called them. The guy's eyes darted toward the stairwell. He looked at Darius, at the phone, at the door, then he spat on the floor and turned. "This isn't over," he muttered. "Yeah," Darius said quietly. "It is." The guy stumbled down the stairs just as two officers appeared at the bottom. Darius stayed where he was, phone in hand, until they had the guy in cuffs. Then he knocked softly on Sienna's door. "It's me. He's gone." The lock clicked, the door opened, and Sienna stood there, tears streaming down her face, holding Lily against her chest. "You came," she whispered. "I told you I would." She broke fully, completely, and Darius stepped inside, closed the door behind him, and just stayed. Because some people don't need saving. They just need someone who won't leave. Lily wouldn't let go of her mother's neck. Even after the police left, even after Darius had checked every window and tested the lock 3 more times, the little girl stayed wrapped around Sienna like a koala clinging to a tree. Her face was buried in her mother's shoulder, and every few minutes a small whimper would escape. Sienna sat on the couch, rocking slowly, one hand stroking Lily's curls. Her other hand was still shaking. She'd stopped crying, but her eyes were red and swollen, and she kept glancing at the door like she expected it to burst open again. Darius stood near the kitchen counter, giving them space, but not leaving. He'd turned off most of the lights, leaving just the small lamp by the couch. The apartment felt too quiet now, the kind of quiet that came after chaos, where every creak and settling sound felt amplified. "You don't have to stay," Sienna said softly, though her voice suggested she didn't mean it. "I know," Darius said. She looked at him. "But you are anyway." "Yeah." Sienna's mouth trembled. She looked down at Lily, pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "I don't know how to thank you." You don't need to." "He could have hurt you." "Sienna." He said her name gently but firmly. "I'm not going anywhere until you feel safe, so just let me stay." She nodded, tears spilling over again. But this time they weren't just fear. They were relief, exhaustion, gratitude, everything she'd been holding back for months. Lily finally lifted her head. Her eyes were puffy, her cheeks wet. She looked at Darius with the kind of raw vulnerability that only children have when they're scared. "Is the bad man gone?" she whispered. Darius walked over slowly, crouched down in front of the couch so he was at her level. "Yeah, kiddo, he's gone." "Is he coming back?" Darius glanced at Sienna, then back at Lily. "Not tonight. And if he ever tries again, your mom's going to call the police. And she's going to call me. And we're going to make sure he doesn't get in. Okay?" Lily's bottom lip quivered. "Promise?" "I promise." She studied his face for a long moment like she was deciding whether to believe him. Then she nodded and buried her face back into her mother's shoulder. Sienna mouthed 2 words to Darius. "Thank you." He just nodded. For the next hour, Darius stayed in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, scrolling through his phone, but not really reading anything. Sienna eventually got Lily to drink some water and eat a few bites of a granola bar. She sang to her soft, off-key lullabies that sounded like they'd been passed down through generations. Slowly, Lily's breathing evened out. Her grip loosened. Her eyes fluttered closed. Sienna waited another 10 minutes before carefully standing and carrying her daughter to the small bedroom at the back of the apartment. Darius heard the creak of a mattress, the rustle of blankets, and then Sienna's quiet voice. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's right here. You're safe." When Sienna came back out, she closed the bedroom door most of the way and leaned against the wall, her shoulders sagging. She looked completely drained. "She's asleep?" Darius asked. "For now." Sienna rubbed her face with both hands. "She's going to have nightmares for weeks." "You did everything right." "I froze, Darius. When I heard him at the door, I just froze. I grabbed Lily and hid in the bedroom like a coward." "That's not cowardice. That's protecting your kid." "It didn't feel like protecting. It felt like running." Darius pushed off the counter and walked over to her. "You called me. You called the police. You kept yourself and Lily safe. That's not running. That's surviving." Sienna's eyes filled again, but she blinked the tears back. "I hate that she had to see that. I hate that she had to be scared." "I know. She's 4, Darius. She should be worried about crayons and cartoons, not whether her father's going to break down the door." Her voice cracked on the last word, and this time she couldn't hold it back. The sob came hard and ragged, and before Darius could think about it, he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her. Sienna stiffened for half a second, then collapsed into him. She cried into his chest, fists clenched in his shirt, her whole body shaking. Darius held her steady, one hand on her back, the other resting gently on her head. He didn't say anything, didn't try to fix it, just let her break. Because sometimes that's all someone needs. When the tears finally slowed, Sienna pulled back, wiping her face with her sleeves. "I'm sorry," she said, voice raw. "For what?" "For falling apart." "You didn't fall apart, you let it out. There's a difference." She laughed, weak and shaky, but real. "You always know what to say, don't you?" "Not always, but I try." Sienna looked up at him, and for a moment neither of them moved. The air between them felt heavy, not with tension, but with something deeper, something unspoken. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. "Doing what?" "This, all of it. You barely know me." Darius thought about how to answer that. He could have said something simple, something safe, but Sienna had been through too much tonight for half-truths. "I know enough," he said. "I know you're a good mom. I know you're trying. I know you deserve someone who shows up." "And you're that someone?" "I'm trying to be." Sienna's breath hitched. She looked away toward the door, then back at him. "I can't do this halfway, Darius. I don't have the energy for games. If you're here, I need to know you're really here. Not just tonight. Not just when it's convenient." "I'm here," Darius said, "for as long as you'll let me be." She searched his face, looking for cracks, for doubt, for the moment he'd back out. But she didn't find any. "Okay," she whispered. Darius nodded. "Okay." They stood there for another moment, and then Sienna glanced back at the bedroom. "I should try to sleep," she said, "even though I know I won't." "You want me to stay? I can crash on the couch." Sienna hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that." Darius grabbed the throw blanket from the back of the couch and settled in. Sienna brought him a pillow that smelled like lavender detergent and gave him one last look before heading to her room. "Darius." He looked up. "I meant what I said. Thank you for everything." "Get some rest, Sienna." She smiled, small but genuine, and disappeared into the bedroom. Darius lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the building settle. Somewhere above, a couple argued in muffled tones. Outside, a car alarm went off and then stopped. The radiator hissed and clanked. But in apartment 3C, everything was quiet. And for the first time in a long time, Sienna Blake slept without jumping at every sound. The morning came too fast. Darius woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of small footsteps pattering across the floor. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, and saw Lily standing a few feet away, clutching her stuffed giraffe and staring at him. "You're still here," she said, like she couldn't quite believe it. "Yeah, I'm still here. Are you going to have breakfast with us?" Darius glanced toward the kitchen where Sienna was pouring coffee into 2 mismatched mugs. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled into a messy bun, but she was standing, moving, functioning. "If your mom says it's okay," Darius said. Lily turned and ran to the kitchen. "Mommy, can Darius have breakfast?" Sienna smiled, tired but warm. "Yeah, baby, he can stay." Breakfast was simple: scrambled eggs, toast, and orange juice that came from a carton. Lily sat between them at the small folding table, swinging her legs and chattering about her favorite cartoon like the night before hadn't happened. Kids had that ability to compartmentalize trauma in ways adults couldn't. Darius knew she'd process it eventually, but for now, she was okay. Sienna, on the other hand, was quieter. She picked at her food, sipped her coffee, and kept glancing at the door. "They gave me a case number," she said after a while. "The police said I could file for a restraining order." "You should," Darius said. "I know. She trailed off, staring at her plate. "What if it makes him angrier? What if he comes back worse?" "Then you call the police again, and you call me, and we handle it. It's not your job to handle my ex." "Maybe not, but I'm making it my job anyway." Sienna looked at him, eyes shining. "Why?" Darius set down his fork. "Because you shouldn't have to do this alone." Lily looked up from her eggs. "Are you going to be my mommy's boyfriend?" Sienna's face went red. "Lily, it's okay," Darius said, a faint smile tugging at his mouth. He looked at Lily. "Would that be okay with you?" Lily thought about it very seriously. Then she nodded. "Yeah, but only if you fix my bike when it breaks again." "Deal." Sienna covered her face with her hands, half laughing, half mortified. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be," Darius said. "She's got good priorities." After breakfast, Darius helped clean up while Sienna got Lily ready for preschool. He washed the dishes by hand, dried them with a faded dish towel, and stacked them neatly in the cabinet. It felt domestic, normal, like this was something he could get used to. When Sienna came back out, Lily was dressed in leggings and a sweatshirt with a cartoon cat on it. She had her backpack on, bright pink with glitter straps, and she looked like any other kid heading to school. "Say bye to Darius," Sienna said. Lily walked over and hugged his leg. "Bye, Darius." "Bye, kiddo. Have a good day." She grinned and ran to the door. Sienna grabbed her keys, then paused and looked back at Darius. "Are you going to be here when I get back?" You want me to be?" She nodded. "Then yeah, I'll be here." Sienna's shoulders relaxed just a little. "Okay." She took Lily's hand and they left. Darius heard their footsteps fade down the hallway, heard the distant ding of the elevator, and then the building went quiet again. He sat back down onto the couch and pulled out his phone. He had 3 missed calls from his supervisor and a text asking where the hell he was. Darius typed out a quick reply. "Family emergency. Back tomorrow." Then he set the phone down and looked around the apartment. Really looked. The couch was sagging in the middle. The coffee table had a water ring that wouldn't come out. The walls were scuffed and the paint was peeling near the baseboards. But there were also photos taped to the fridge. Lily at the park. Lily blowing out birthday candles. Lily holding a popsicle and grinning with sticky hands. There was a shelf with 3 picture books and a stack of coloring pages held together with a binder clip. There was a calendar on the wall with Sienna's work shifts written in blue pen and Lily's preschool days marked in red. This was a home, not perfect, not easy, but real. And Darius wanted to be part of it. When Sienna came back 40 minutes later, she found him on the couch, scrolling through his phone. She closed the door behind her, locked it, and leaned against the wall. "She asked me if you were going to be her new daddy," Sienna said, half amused, half mortified. Darius raised an eyebrow. "What did you say?" "I said it doesn't work like that." "And what did she say?" Sienna smiled. "She said, but I like him." Darius chuckled. "Smart kid." "She is." Sienna walked over and sat down beside him, leaving just enough space between them to feel intentional. "Darius, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "Okay." She turned to face him, her expression serious. "Are you doing this because you feel sorry for me?" "No." "Are you doing this because you want to be some kind of hero?" "No." "Then why?" Darius set his phone down and turned to face her fully. "Because when I'm with you, I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. I don't feel like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. I just feel like me, and that's rare." Sienna's eyes softened. "I feel that too." "Good. But I'm scared, Darius. I'm scared of letting someone in and having them leave. I'm scared of Lily getting attached and then losing you. I'm scared of..." "Sienna." He reached out and gently took her hand. "I'm not him. I'm not your ex. I'm not going to promise you forever on day 1 because that's not real. But I can promise you this. I show up. I don't run when things get hard. And I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me to." Sienna's breath hitched. She looked down at their hands, then back up at him. What if I'm a mess? She whispered. Then you're a mess, so am I. What if this doesn't work? Then we tried, but I think it will. She laughed, soft and shaky. You're really not like other guys, are you? Nope. Sienna squeezed his hand. Okay, let's try. Yeah? Yeah. And just like that, something shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. Over the next week, Darius came by every day. Sometimes he brought coffee, sometimes he brought groceries. One night, he showed up with a pizza and a kids' movie Lily had been begging to watch. They sat on the couch, Lily between them, Sienna's feet tucked under her, Darius's arm stretched across the back of the couch, and watched animated animals sing about friendship. It was simple, easy, normal, and Sienna hadn't felt normal in years. One evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Sienna and Darius sat on the couch with mugs of tea. The apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside. I filed for the restraining order, Sienna said. Darius looked at her. How'd it go? It was hard. I had to write down everything. Every time he showed up, every threat, every time I felt unsafe. She paused. But I did it. I'm proud of you. It doesn't feel like enough. It's a start. Sienna nodded, staring into her mug. He's going to be pissed when he finds out. Let him be pissed. He can be pissed from a distance. She smiled faintly. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, but it's necessary. Sienna set her mug down and turned to face him. Can I ask you something personal? Go ahead. Why aren't you with someone? Like, seriously. You're kind. You're reliable. You fix things. Why are you single? Darius chuckled. You make me sound like a golden retriever. I'm serious. He thought about it for a moment. I guess I just never found someone I wanted to make the effort for. Most people want the highlight reel, the fun, the romance, the easy parts, but they don't want the work. And I'm not interested in surface level. And you think I'm worth the work? I know you are. Sienna's eyes welled up. I don't know what I did to deserve you. You didn't have to do anything. You just had to be you. She leaned in and kissed him, soft, tentative, testing. Darius kissed her back, his hand cupping her cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear she didn't realize had fallen. When they pulled apart, Sienna rested her forehead against his. I'm still scared, she whispered. I know, but I'm glad you're here. Me too. They stayed like that for a while, close, quiet, real. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Sienna believed that maybe, just maybe, things could be okay. But peace never lasts long when the past isn't ready to let go. 3 days later, Sienna got a text from an unknown number. You think a piece of paper is going to stop me? Her blood went cold. She was at work wiping down tables at the diner she waitressed at 4 nights a week when the message came through. Her hands started shaking so badly she dropped her rag. Her coworker, Marissa, noticed. You okay? Sienna didn't answer. She just stared at the screen. Another message came through. You can't keep her from me. She's my daughter, too. Sienna's chest tightened. She looked around the diner, half empty, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the smell of burnt coffee and grease hanging in the air. She felt exposed, vulnerable. She texted Darius. Sienna, he's texting me. The reply came within seconds. Darius, screenshot everything. Don't respond. I'm calling the police. Sienna, what if he shows up here? Darius, where are you? Sienna, Lou's diner on 5th. Darius, I'm coming. Sienna wanted to tell him no. Wanted to say she could handle it, but she couldn't. She was terrified. 20 minutes later, Darius walked through the door. He spotted her immediately, walked over and sat down in the booth across from her. You okay? He asked. No. Show me the texts. She handed him her phone. He read them, jaw tightening. This is harassment, violation of the restraining order. He pulled out his own phone. I'm forwarding this to the officer who took your report. What if he comes here, Darius? What if he... He won't, and if he does, I'm here. Sienna's eyes filled with tears. You can't keep doing this. You can't keep dropping everything for me. Why not? Because it's not fair to you. Darius reached across the table and took her hand. Sienna, I'm not doing this because I have to. I'm doing it because I want to. You get that, right? Get that. But, no buts. You matter. Lily matters. And I'm not letting him scare you into feeling small. Sienna broke. Right there in the middle of the diner, she broke, and Darius just held her hand and let her. When her shift ended, Darius walked her to her car. He checked the back seat, made sure the doors locked, and waited until she drove off before heading to his own truck. But he didn't go home. He went back to Lenox Street and parked across from the building just in case. Because some promises aren't just words, they're action. And Darius Mitchell was a man of action. The texts didn't stop. Over the next 48 hours, Sienna's phone lit up 17 more times. Each message was a variation of the same threat wrapped in different words. Some were almost pleading. I just want to see my daughter. Others were vicious. You're going to regret this. If you were incoherent. Sent late at night when he was clearly drunk. Strings of words that didn't make sense but carried the weight of rage underneath. Sienna forwarded every single one to the police. She documented the timestamps, took screenshots, and filed an additional report. The officer assigned to her case, a woman named Detective Raman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense tone, told her they were building a violation case, but that these things took time. Time, that was the problem. Time meant waiting. Time meant wondering when he'd escalate from words to action. Darius had started staying over most nights, not in Sienna's bed. He still took the couch, insisted on it, even when she told him the bedroom had space. But he was there, present. A wall between her fear and the door. Lily had noticed. Kids always noticed. One morning while Sienna was packing her lunch, Lily looked up from her bowl of cereal and asked the question that had clearly been forming in her 4-year-old mind for days. Is Darius going to live here now? Sienna paused, a sandwich half wrapped in her hands. She glanced at Darius, who was leaning against the counter with a mug of coffee, doing his best to look like he wasn't listening. No, baby, Sienna said carefully. Darius is just helping us right now. Helping with what? Sienna's throat tightened. She didn't want to lie, but she also didn't want to scare her daughter more than she already had. Just making sure we're safe, she said. Lily tilted her head, considering this. Because of the bad man. Sienna's chest ached. Yeah, because of him. Lily turned to Darius. Are you going to make him go away forever? Darius set his mug down and walked over. He crouched beside Lily's chair, meeting her eyes with the same steady calm he always had. I'm going to make sure he doesn't scare you or your mom anymore, he said. That's a promise. What if he's really, really strong? Doesn't matter. Your mom's stronger. And she's got people who care about her. That makes her even stronger. Lily seemed to accept this. She took another bite of cereal, then said, I'm glad you're here. Darius smiled, small but genuine. Me too, kiddo. After Sienna dropped Lily at preschool, she came back to the apartment and found Darius washing the dishes from breakfast. He'd rolled up his sleeves and there was a dish towel slung over his shoulder. It was such a small thing, such a normal domestic thing, but it made Sienna's heart twist. You don't have to do that, she said, setting her keys on the counter. I know. Darius, seriously, you've done enough. He turned off the water, dried his hands, and faced her. Have I? You've been sleeping on my couch for 3 days. You've walked me to work. You've checked my car. Her voice cracked. You've put your life on hold for me. My life's not on hold. I'm exactly where I want to be. But, Sienna. He stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. Stop trying to push me away. I'm not. You are. Every time things feel too real, you try to give me an out. You tell me I don't have to stay. You tell me I've done enough. But I'm not looking for an exit, so stop offering me one. Sienna stared at him, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Let someone in. Trust that they won't leave. Then let me show you. Her eyes filled with tears. What if you get tired of this? Of me? Of all the chaos? Darius reached out and cupped her face in both hands, his thumbs brushing away the tears that had started to fall. I'm not going anywhere, he said quietly. Not because I'm some kind of saint. Not because I think I can fix everything, but because when I look at you, I see someone worth staying for. And when I look at Lily, I see a kid who deserves to feel safe. So, yeah, I'm here. And I'm going to keep being here until you believe it. Sienna let out a shaky breath and leaned into him. Darius wrapped his arms around her, holding her close, and for a moment the world outside the apartment didn't exist. But reality had a way of crashing back in. That night, Sienna was closing up at the diner when her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, expecting another text from her ex, but it wasn't him. It was the preschool. Crossroads. Preschool. Hi, Miss Blake. This is Director Chen. Please call the office when you get this. It's about Lily. Sienna's stomach dropped. She immediately dialed the number, her hands shaking as she pressed the phone to her ear. Miss Blake. The voice on the other end was calm but serious. Yes, what happened? Is Lily okay? Lily is fine, but we had an incident this afternoon. A man came to the front desk asking to pick her up. He said he was her father. The world tilted. Sienna gripped the edge of the counter to steady herself. What did you do? We followed protocol. We asked for ID and checked our approved pickup list. His name wasn't on it, so we denied the request. He became agitated and raised his voice, so we asked him to leave. When he refused, we called the police. Where is he now? Gone. The officers arrived and he left before they could detain him. But we have his description on file and we've updated our security measures. Lily was in her classroom the entire time and didn't see him. Sienna's knees nearly gave out. She pressed a hand to her mouth, trying to keep herself together. Thank you, she managed. Thank you for not... We would never release a child to someone not on the approved list, Director Chen said firmly. But I wanted to let you know so you're aware. If he tries again, we'll contact the police immediately. Okay, thank you. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Sienna hung up and immediately called Darius. He answered on the first ring. Hey, he went to her school. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of every fear she'd been holding back. He tried to take her. There was a beat of silence. Then Darius's voice came through low and controlled. Where are you? At work. I'm leaving now to get her. I'm meeting you there. Darius. I'm meeting you there, Sienna. Don't argue. She didn't. When Sienna arrived at the preschool, Darius's truck was already in the parking lot. He was leaning against the driver's side door, arms crossed, waiting. The moment he saw her car, he walked over and opened her door before she'd even put it in park. You okay? He asked. No. Let's get her. Inside, Director Chen met them in the lobby. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and an air of authority that made it clear she didn't tolerate nonsense. She explained the situation again, showed them the incident report, and assured them that additional security protocols were now in place. We take these things very seriously, she said. Your daughter's safety is our top priority. Sienna nodded, barely holding herself together. Can I see her? Of course. They walked down the hallway to Lily's classroom. Through the window in the door, Sienna could see her daughter sitting at a table with two other kids coloring with crayons. She looked perfectly fine, completely unaware. And that somehow made it worse. When Lily saw her mom, she jumped up and ran over, throwing her arms around Sienna's legs. Mommy, look what I made. She held up a drawing. Stick figures under a rainbow, one tall, one small, and one in between. That's me, and that's you, and that's Darius, Lily said proudly. Sienna's throat closed up. She crouched down and hugged her daughter tightly, breathing in the smell of crayons and strawberry shampoo. It's beautiful, baby, she whispered. On the drive home, Lily chattered in the back seat about her day. Snack time, circle time, the new song they learned. She had no idea how close danger had come, and Sienna intended to keep it that way. But once Lily was asleep that night, tucked into bed with her stuffed giraffe and a nightlight shaped like a crescent moon, Sienna sat on the couch and finally let herself fall apart. Darius sat beside her, one arm around her shoulders, and let her cry. He's not gonna stop, she said through tears. He's never gonna stop. Then we make him. Xiang. How? Restraining order didn't work. The police can't do anything unless he actually hurts someone. What am I supposed to do, Darius? Wait until he gets to her? No, we go back to Detective Raman. We show her the texts, the school incident, everything. We build a case so strong they have no choice but to act. And if that doesn't work, Darius turned to face her, his expression serious. Then we do whatever it takes to keep you and Lily safe. I don't care what that looks like. You're not doing this alone. Sienna looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who had walked into her life as a maintenance guy and somehow become the person she leaned on most. The person who didn't flinch when things got hard. The person who stayed. I don't deserve you, she whispered. Yeah, you do. She kissed him then. Not soft, not tentative, but with everything she'd been holding back. All the fear, all the gratitude, all the hope she didn't know she still had. Darius kissed her back, his hand tangling in her hair, grounding her in the moment. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. "I'm falling for you," Sienna said quietly. "And that terrifies me." "I know. I'm falling for you too. What if this doesn't work? What if it does?" She laughed, shaky and wet, and rested her forehead against his. "You're annoyingly optimistic, you know that?" "Someone has to be." They stayed like that for a while, wrapped up in each other, letting the weight of the day settle. And for the first time since the text started, Sienna felt like maybe, just maybe, they could get through this. The next morning, Darius went with Sienna to the police station. They sat across from Detective Raman in a cramped office that smelled like burnt coffee and old paperwork. Raman listened as Sienna laid out everything. The texts, the school incident, the escalating threats. He's getting bolder, Raman said, flipping through the printed screenshots. "That's not a good sign." "So what do we do?" Sienna asked. "We file for an emergency custody hearing. We document every violation and we make sure he knows that if he comes near you or your daughter again, he's going to jail." "Will that actually stop him?" Raman looked her in the eye. "Honestly, I don't know. Some people respect boundaries, some don't. But what I do know is that you're doing everything right. You're documenting, you're reporting, you're protecting your child. That matters." Sienna nodded, though the reassurance felt hollow. As they left the station, Darius took her hand. "We're going to get through this." You keep saying that." "Because it's true." "How do you know?" "Because you're stronger than you think. And because I'm not letting him win." That night, Sienna couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from the past 2 weeks. The pounding on the door, the texts, the school, the fear that lived in her chest like a permanent weight. Around midnight, she got up and walked to the living room. Darius was on the couch, scrolling through his phone. He looked up when he heard her. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "No." She sat down beside him, pulling her knees to her chest. "I keep thinking about what happens if he doesn't stop. If he keeps coming, if one day he..." Her voice broke. Darius set his phone down and turned to face her. "Then we handle it together." "But what if something happens to you? What if he hurts you because you're protecting me?" "Then I get hurt, but I'm not backing down." "Darius!" "Sienna, listen to me. I've made my choice. I'm here. I'm not leaving. And whatever comes next, we face it together. You, me, and Lily. That's the deal." Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't want you to get hurt because of me." "I won't. But even if I did, it would be worth it." She broke then, and Darius pulled her into his arms. She cried into his chest, and he held her until the tears ran dry. "I'm so tired," she whispered. "I know. I just want to feel safe." "You will, I promise." And in that moment, wrapped in his arms, Sienna almost believed him. The calm lasted 3 more days. 3 days of normal routines. Work, preschool drop-offs, dinners at the small folding table. 3 days where Sienna almost convinced herself that maybe her ex had finally gotten the message. Then at 2:13 a.m. on a Friday night, her phone lit up. Not with a text this time, with a call. Unknown number. Sienna stared at the screen, her heart pounding. She didn't want to answer, didn't want to hear his voice. But something told her she needed to. She swiped to accept and pressed the phone to her ear. "Hello?" Heavy breathing. Then his voice, slurred, angry, broken. "You think you can just erase me like I don't matter? Don't call me. She's my daughter, Sienna. Mine. You don't get to keep her from me. You have a restraining order. You're violating it right now." He laughed, sharp and bitter. "You think I care about a piece of paper? You think that's going to stop me?" Sienna's blood ran cold. "Where are you?" Silence. Then faintly she heard it. A car engine. Close. Too close. She jumped out of bed and ran to the window. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely pull the curtain back. And when she looked down at the street below, her heart stopped. His car parked across from the building. Engine running, headlights on. He was here. Sienna's breath came in short, panicked gasps. She dropped the phone and ran to the living room. "Darius!" He sat up immediately, alert. "What's wrong?" "He's outside right now. He called me and he's outside." Darius was on his feet in seconds. He grabbed his phone, pulled up the camera, and went to the window. He zoomed in on the car and took several photos. "Stay inside," he said. "Lock the bedroom door with Lily. I'm calling the police." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to make sure he doesn't get in." Darius, don't go out there. I'm not. But I'm not letting him think he can do this either. He dialed 911, gave the address, explained the situation, then he stood by the window and waited. Downstairs, the car door opened. A figure stepped out, unsteady, stumbling slightly. He looked up at the building, and even from 3 floors up, Sienna could see the rage on his face. He started walking toward the entrance. Darius's jaw tightened. He kept the dispatcher on the line and moved toward the door. "What are you doing?" Sienna whispered, making sure he knows he's being watched. Darius opened the apartment door and stepped into the hallway. He didn't go downstairs, just stood at the top of the stairwell, phone in hand, recording. A minute later, footsteps echoed below, heavy, angry, then his voice shouting up the stairs. "Sienna, I know you're up there. You can't hide from me." Darius's voice cut through the darkness, calm and cold. "You need to leave now." The footsteps stopped, then louder. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who's recording every word you say. Police are on their way. You've got about 2 minutes to get back in your car and leave. This is between me and her." "Not anymore." There was a long pause, then the sound of footsteps, this time retreating. Darius stayed where he was, phone raised, until he heard the car door slam and the engine rev. He watched through the stairwell window as the car peeled out of the parking lot and disappeared down the street. Only then did he lower his phone. Sienna was standing in the doorway of the apartment, shaking. Darius walked over and pulled her into his arms. "It's okay," he said quietly. "He's gone. He's coming back. You know he is." "Then we'll be ready." 2 patrol cars arrived 5 minutes later. Darius gave them the photos, the recording, and a detailed account. They took statements, added everything to the existing case file, and promised to increase patrols in the area. But Sienna knew the truth. Patrols wouldn't stop him. Words wouldn't stop him. Nothing would stop him until someone made him. And as she sat on the couch with Darius's arm around her, listening to Lily's soft breathing from the other room, Sienna realized something. She was done being afraid. It was time to fight back. The morning after felt different. Sienna woke with a clarity she hadn't felt in weeks, maybe months. The fear was still there, coiled tight in her chest, but it had shifted into something else, something harder, more determined. She wasn't going to run anymore. She wasn't going to wait for him to make the next move. She was going to take control of her own life, her daughter's life, and she was going to do it the right way. Darius was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open and a notepad covered in his neat, blocky handwriting. He looked up when she walked in, his expression softening. "You sleep at all?" he asked. "A little." She poured herself coffee from the pot he'd already made and sat down across from him. "What are you doing?" "Research. I've been looking into emergency custody orders, how to expedite restraining order violations, what we need to build a case that actually puts him away." Sienna felt her throat tighten. "You've been up all night doing this." "Couple hours, couldn't sleep anyway." She reached across the table and put her hand over his. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. We've still got work to do." "I know, and I'm ready." Darius studied her face. "You sure?" "I'm done being scared, Darius. I'm done letting him control my life. Whatever it takes, I'm ready to fight." He squeezed her hand. "Then let's fight." They spent the morning organizing everything, every text message, every voicemail, every incident report. Darius had created a timeline cross-referenced with dates and times, building a clear pattern of escalation. Harassment, threats, violation of the restraining order, attempted pickup at the school, showing up at the building in the middle of the night. When they laid it all out, it was damning. But Sienna knew from experience that damning evidence didn't always mean action. The system moved slowly and her ex moved fast. "We need to go back to Detective Raman," Darius said. "Show her all of this. Push for an arrest warrant. And if she says there's still not enough, then we find a lawyer. We file for emergency custody. We do whatever it takes to protect Lily." Sienna nodded. "Okay, let's do it." They dropped Lily off at preschool. This time, Sienna walked her all the way to the classroom and had a conversation with the teacher about the updated security protocols. She made sure Director Chen had both her number and Darius's, with explicit instructions to call immediately if anything seemed off. Then they drove to the police station. Detective Raman met them in the same cramped office, and this time she didn't look surprised to see them. She looked tired, like she'd seen the story play out too many times before. Let me guess, Raman said as they sat down. He escalated again. He showed up at the building at 2 o'clock in the morning, Sienna said. Called me while he was outside. Darius recorded him threatening me in the stairwell, she continued, and he tried to pick up my daughter from preschool 3 days ago. Raman's jaw tightened. She took the folder Darius handed her and flipped through the documents, the photos, the printed screenshots. For a long time, she said nothing, just read, processed, made notes in the margins. Finally, she looked up. This is enough. Sienna's breath caught. Enough for what? Enough for an arrest warrant. He's violated the restraining order multiple times. He's made credible threats. He's attempted to access your child against court orders. I can take this to the prosecutor's office today. And they'll actually do something? They'll issue a warrant. Whether he gets picked up quickly depends on whether he's stupid enough to show his face again. But once it's in the system, any officer who runs his information will see it. Sienna felt like she could breathe for the first time in days. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Getting a warrant is one thing. Keeping you safe until he's in custody is another. Have you thought about staying somewhere else for a few days with family, friends? I don't have family nearby, and I can't afford a hotel. Raman looked at Darius. What about you? I've been staying with her, making sure she's not alone. Good. Keep doing that. And I'd recommend changing your routine as much as possible. Different routes to work, different times for drop-off and pickup. Make it harder for him to predict where you'll be. Sienna nodded, though the weight of it all pressed down on her shoulders. This was her life now. Looking over her shoulder, changing routes, living in fear. But at least now there was a plan. And a plan was better than helplessness. As they left the station, Darius put his arm around her shoulders. You did good in there. I didn't do anything. You're the one who put it all together. We did it together. Sienna leaned into him, drawing strength from the solid weight of his presence. What happens now? Now we wait. We stay vigilant. And we keep Lily safe. And us? Ethan, no. Darius stopped walking and turned to face her. What about us? Are you really okay with this? With all of this chaos? With my life being a mess? Sienna, look at me. He waited until her eyes met his. Your life isn't a mess. You're dealing with a dangerous situation and you're handling it. That's not the same thing. And yeah, I'm okay with it because you're worth it. Her eyes filled with tears. I keep waiting for you to realize this is too much. Stop waiting. I'm not going anywhere. She kissed him then, right there on the sidewalk in front of the police station. And for a moment, the world felt a little less heavy. The next few days passed in a careful rhythm. Sienna changed her schedule at the diner, swapping shifts with coworkers so she wasn't always closing. Darius drove Lily to preschool in the mornings, using different routes each time. They kept the curtains drawn at the apartment and installed a motion sensor light outside the door. It felt like living in a bunker, but it felt safer than the alternative. Lily, for her part, seemed to adapt with the resilience only kids had. She asked fewer questions now, maybe sensing that the answers would scare her. Instead, she focused on the things she could control. Her drawings, her stuffed animals, the songs she learned at school. One evening, while Sienna was folding laundry, Lily climbed onto the couch beside her and held up a picture she'd drawn. Look, Mommy, it's our family. Sienna took the picture. It showed 3 stick figures standing in front of a house, one tall, one medium, one small. Above them, a sun with a smiley face. That's beautiful, baby. Who are these people? That's you, and that's me, and that's Darius. Sienna's chest tightened. Darius is part of our family. Lily nodded matter-of-factly. He lives here now, and he makes you smile, so yeah. Sienna glanced over at Darius, who was sitting at the kitchen table pretending not to listen. His ears had gone slightly red. What do you think, Darius? Sienna asked, keeping her voice light. Are you part of the family? He looked up, met her eyes, and smiled. If you'll have me. Lily clapped her hands. Yay! Now we're a real family. Sienna pulled her daughter close and pressed a kiss to the top of her head, trying not to cry. Because somewhere along the way, without her even realizing it, that's exactly what they'd become. But peace was fragile, and 3 days later, it shattered. Sienna was at work refilling coffee at a corner booth when her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. She ignored it at first. She was busy, and Marissa had already covered 2 of her tables while she dealt with a spilled milkshake. But then it buzzed again and again. She excused herself and stepped into the back hallway, pulling out her phone. 3 missed calls from Darius. 2 texts. Her stomach dropped. The first text, "Call me now." The second, "He's here." Sienna's hands started shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. She called Darius, and he answered immediately. "Where are you?" His voice was tight, controlled, but she could hear the tension underneath. "At work. What's happening?" "He showed up at the building, tried to get into the apartment. I stopped him, but he's not leaving. I've got him on video, and the police are on their way." "Where's Lily?" "Still at preschool. I already called. She's safe. But you need to stay where you are until the cops have him." "Darius, if he hurts you..." He won't. I'm not engaging. I'm just making sure he doesn't get inside." "I'm coming home." "Sienna, no." "I'm coming home." She hung up before he could argue, told Marissa she had an emergency, and ran to her car. The drive back to Lenox Street felt like it took hours, though it was only 12 minutes. Her mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Darius hurt, the door broken down, her ex inside the apartment tearing it apart. When she pulled into the parking lot, she saw the police cars first. 2 of them, lights flashing but no sirens. Then she saw Darius standing near the building entrance talking to an officer. And then she saw him, her ex, in handcuffs, being led towards one of the patrol cars. Sienna's breath left her in a rush. She parked haphazardly and ran over to Darius. "Are you okay?" she asked, grabbing his arm. "I'm fine. What happened?" One of the officers, a tall man with gray hair and a kind face, stepped forward. "Ma'am, are you Sienna Blake?" "Yes." "Your boyfriend here did exactly what he should have done. Stayed calm, recorded everything, and called us. The suspect has an active warrant, so we're taking him into custody." "For how long?" "That's up to the judge. But with the restraining order violations and the evidence we've collected, I'd say he's looking at some serious consequences." Sienna felt her knees weaken. Darius caught her, steadying her. "Is it over?" she whispered. The officer hesitated. "For now, but you should still be cautious. Keep documenting anything unusual, and if he makes bail, we'll notify you immediately." Sienna nodded, though the officer's words felt distant. All she could focus on was the sight of her ex being pushed into the back of the patrol car, his face twisted with rage even as the door slammed shut. The car pulled away, and for the first time in weeks, Sienna felt like she could breathe. Darius wrapped his arms around her and she buried her face in his chest, shaking. "It's okay," he murmured. "It's okay. Is it really over now?" "Yeah." She pulled back, looking up at him. "What did he say to you?" "Nothing worth repeating." "Darius," he sighed. "He said you'd never be free of him, that I was wasting my time, that he'd make sure I regretted getting involved." Sienna's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. He's wrong about all of it." "How do you know?" "Because I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere." She kissed him then, hard and desperate, and filled with every emotion she didn't have words for. Darius kissed her back, holding her like she was the only solid thing in the world. When they finally pulled apart, Sienna rested her forehead against his. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For staying, for fighting, for being you." You don't have to thank me for that." "I do, because not everyone would." Darius cupped her face in his hands. "Then they're idiots." She laughed, shaky and wet, and let herself lean into him. That night, after picking up Lily from preschool and explaining in the gentlest terms possible that the bad man wasn't going to bother them anymore, Sienna made spaghetti for dinner. It was simple, nothing fancy, but it felt normal. Routine, safe. Lily insisted Darius sit next to her, and she spent the entire meal telling him about the butterfly they'd seen on the playground and the new song they'd learned about shapes. Darius listened like it was the most important conversation he'd ever had. And watching them together, this man who had no obligation to care, and this little girl who had claimed him as hers, Sienna felt something shift in her chest. This was what she wanted. Not perfection, not a fairy tale, just this, real, messy, beautiful life. After dinner, Darius helped clean up while Sienna got Lily ready for bed. When she came back out, he was sitting on the couch looking at something on his phone. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just checking the arrest record. It's official. He's being held without bail until the hearing." Sienna sat down beside him. "How long will that take?" "Couple weeks, probably. But Raymond said with all the evidence, it's likely he'll get jail time. And if he doesn't, then we deal with it together." Sienna nodded, though the thought of him getting out, of going through this all over again, made her stomach churn. Darius set his phone down and turned to face her. Can I ask you something? Of course. What do you want when all this is over? When things settle down, what do you want your life to look like? Sienna thought about it. Really thought about it. For so long, she'd been focused on survival, on keeping Lily safe, on making it through each day. She hadn't let herself think beyond that. I want peace, she said finally. I want Lily to feel safe. I want to not be afraid every time someone knocks on the door. She trailed off, looking at him. I want this. You and me and Lily. I want to see where this goes. Darius smiled. Yeah? Yeah, if you're still interested. Sienna, I've been interested since the first time you checked my ID through the peephole. She laughed. That's a weird thing to be attracted to. It was smart, cautious. It told me you'd been through something and you weren't taking chances. I respected that. You're a strange man, Darius Mitchell. I've been told. She leaned in and kissed him slow and soft, and when they pulled apart, she rested her head on his shoulder. Stay tonight? She asked quietly. I always do. No, I mean stay in my room, with me. Darius pulled back slightly, searching her face. You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. He nodded. Okay. That night, for the first time since everything started, Sienna didn't sleep alone. She curled into Darius's chest, his arm wrapped around her, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt safe. Not because the danger was gone, not because everything was fixed, but because she wasn't facing it alone. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange kind of limbo. Life returned to a fragile version of normal. Sienna went to work, Lily went to preschool. Darius moved between his own apartment and hers, though he spent most nights on Lenox Street. The hearing date was set. The prosecutor called to go over testimony. Detective Raman checked in regularly, and slowly, carefully, Sienna started to believe that maybe, just maybe, they were going to be okay. Then, the day before the hearing, Sienna got a call from an unknown number. Her first instinct was to ignore it, but something made her answer. Hello? A woman's voice, older, tired. Is this Sienna Blake? Yes, who is this? My name is Karen. I'm his mother. Sienna's blood ran cold. Why are you calling me? I wanted to apologize for what my son has put you through. I know it doesn't mean much, but I needed you to know I didn't raise him to be like this. Sienna didn't know what to say. She sat down on the couch, gripping the phone. Why are you telling me this? Because he's my son and I love him, but what he did to you and your daughter is unforgivable. And I wanted you to know that I'm not going to ask you to drop the charges. I'm not going to defend him. He needs to face the consequences. Sienna's throat tightened. Thank you. I also wanted to ask you something, and you don't have to answer, but is Lily okay? Sienna's eyes filled with tears. She's okay. She's safe. Good. That's all I needed to know. There was a pause, then Karen's voice, softer now. Take care of her, and take care of yourself. I will. The line went dead. Sienna sat there for a long moment, phone still in her hand, processing the conversation. It didn't change anything, didn't make what he'd done okay, but it felt like closure in a way she hadn't expected. When Darius came home that evening, she told him about the call. He listened, then pulled her close. How do you feel? He asked. Sad for her, for Lily, for all of it. That's fair. But also relieved, like maybe this really is the end. It is. Tomorrow we go to court. We tell the truth and we move forward. Sienna nodded. Together. The next morning they walked into the courthouse hand in hand. Lily was with a trusted neighbor, safe and unaware of what was happening. Inside, the hallways were cold and sterile, filled with people in suits and the low murmur of legal jargon. When they finally entered the courtroom, Sienna saw him for the first time since the arrest. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, handcuffed in front of him. He didn't look at her, didn't acknowledge her presence, and that more than anything told her he'd finally realized he'd lost. The hearing lasted less than an hour. The prosecutor presented the evidence: texts, recordings, police reports, witness testimony. Darius took the stand and calmly recounted what he'd seen. Sienna spoke last, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The judge listened, asked questions, made notes, and then finally rendered a decision. 6 months in county jail, 5 years probation after release, no contact order. Supervised visitation with Lily only if she requested it when she turned 18. It was over. Sienna felt Darius's hand squeeze hers as the judge's gavel came down. She turned to look at him, and the expression on his face said everything. They'd won. Outside the courthouse, Sienna stood in the sunlight and let herself cry. Not from fear, not from exhaustion, but from relief. Darius wrapped his arms around her and held her while she shook. It's really over, she whispered. Yeah, it really is. She pulled back, looking up at him. What now? Now we go pick up Lily. We go home and we live. Sienna smiled, real and full and free. I like that plan. Good, because I'm not done with you yet. Yeah? Yeah, we've got a lot of life to live, Sienna Blake, and I want to live it with you. She kissed him then, right there on the courthouse steps. And for the first time in years, Sienna felt like the future wasn't something to fear. It was something to build. The ride back to the apartment felt different, lighter, like the air itself had changed. Sienna sat in the passenger seat of Darius's truck, her hand resting on his on the center console, and watched the city pass by through the window. The buildings looked the same. The streets were still cracked and patched with asphalt. The same homeless man stood on the corner of 5th and Madison with his cardboard sign. Nothing had changed, except everything had. When they pulled into the parking lot of the building on Lenox Street, Sienna let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Darius turned off the engine and looked at her. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I keep waiting for something bad to happen, like this is all going to fall apart. It's not. How do you know? Because we're not running on fear anymore. We're running on something real. Sienna smiled and squeezed his hand. When did you get so wise? I've always been this wise. You just weren't paying attention. She laughed, genuine and full, and it felt like the first real laugh she'd had in months. They picked up Lily from Mrs. Chen's apartment on the 2nd floor. The older woman had been watching her for the past few hours. And when she opened the door, Lily was sitting on the floor with a pile of building blocks, completely absorbed in constructing what looked like a lopsided tower. Mommy! Lily jumped up and ran over, throwing her arms around Sienna's legs. Look what I made. That's amazing, baby. Did you say thank you to Mrs. Chen? Lily turned and gave a very serious nod. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. Mrs. Chen smiled, her weathered face crinkling at the corners. She's a good girl. You take care of her. I will, Sienna said. Thank you so much for watching her. Anytime, dear, anytime. Back in their apartment, Lily immediately ran to her room to grab her stuffed giraffe and show Darius the new song she'd learned at preschool. She sang it 3 times, loud, off-key, and with complete confidence. While Darius listened like it was a Broadway performance, Sienna stood in the kitchen making sandwiches for lunch and watched them. This man who had walked into her life fixing a broken doorframe and somehow ended up fixing so much more. This little girl who had claimed him as family without hesitation, and herself still standing, still fighting, still here. For the first time in a long time, Sienna felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. After lunch, Lily curled up on the couch for a nap, clutching her giraffe and humming softly to herself. Sienna covered her with a blanket and kissed her forehead, then joined Darius in the kitchen. She's out, Sienna said quietly. She had a big day, even if she didn't know it. Sienna nodded and leaned against the counter. Darius, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Always. What happens now with us? I know you said you're not going anywhere, but what does that actually mean? Are you moving in? Are we just seeing where this goes? I need to know what I'm working with here. Darius set down the dish towel he'd been holding and walked over to her. He didn't touch her right away, just stood close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating off him. What do you want it to mean? He asked. I want something real. I want to know that when I wake up tomorrow, you're still going to be here. I want Lily to have stability. I want to stop feeling like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then that's what we'll do. Just like that? Just like that. Sienna shook her head, half smiling. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. I care about you. I care about Lily. I want to build something with you. So let's build it. What if I'm difficult? What if I have bad days? What if... Darius reached out and gently placed his hand on her cheek, cutting off her spiraling thoughts. Sienna, I've seen your bad days. I've been there for the worst of it, and I'm still here. So stop trying to talk me out of this. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to do this, how to let someone in. Then we'll figure it out together, one day at a time. She nodded, blinking back tears. Okay, one day at a time. He kissed her then, soft and slow, and Sienna let herself sink into it, let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved this. That night, after Lily had gone to bed and the apartment was quiet, Sienna and Darius sat on the couch with mugs of tea. The television was on, playing some old sitcom. Neither of them was really watching. It was just background noise, a buffer against the silence. I was thinking, Darius said after a while. About what? About moving some of my stuff over here. Not all of it. Just enough that I'm not living out of a duffel bag. Sienna looked at him, surprised. You want to move in? If you're okay with it. I know it's fast, but I'm here most nights anyway, and it'd be easier for all of us. Sienna thought about it. A month ago, the idea of someone moving into her space would have terrified her, but now it felt right. Okay, she said. Yeah, let's do it. Darius grinned, wide and genuine, and pulled her into his arms. You're not going to regret this. I better not, because if you leave your socks on the floor, I'm kicking you out. Deal. Over the next week, Darius slowly moved his things into the apartment. A few boxes of clothes, some books, his toolbox, which he set up in the small closet by the front door. He didn't take over the space, didn't try to rearrange everything to suit himself. He just fit, like he'd always been there. Lily was thrilled. She helped him unpack, insisted on showing him where everything should go, and declared that his coffee mug, a plain black one with a chip on the handle, needed to go next to hers, which had cartoon pandas on it. Now we match, she said seriously. Darius ruffled her hair. Now we match. Sienna watched from the doorway, her heart so full it hurt. The following Saturday, Darius suggested they do something as a family. Nothing big, just the three of them out in the world doing normal things. Like what? Sienna asked. I don't know. The park, the zoo, anywhere Lily wants to go. Lily, who had been eavesdropping from her spot on the floor, immediately piped up. The zoo! I want to see the elephants! Sienna laughed. All right, zoo it is. They spent the day walking through the exhibits, eating overpriced hot dogs, and watching Lily's face light up every time she saw a new animal. She dragged Darius to the elephant enclosure and made him stand there for 20 minutes while she pointed out every single thing they did. Look, Darius, that one's eating, and that one's spraying water, and that one's just standing there, but it's still cool. Darius nodded seriously. Very cool. Sienna took a photo of them, standing in front of the elephant sign, Lily grinning with missing front teeth. Darius crouched down beside her with his arm around her shoulders. When she looked at the photo later, she realized it was the first picture she had where all three of them looked happy. Genuinely, completely happy. She made it her phone background that night. As the weeks passed, life settled into a rhythm. Sienna kept her job at the diner, though she was looking into going back to school to finish her nursing degree. Darius continued working maintenance at the building, but he'd started talking about eventually getting his contractor's license and going out on his own. Lily thrived at preschool, made new friends, and stopped having nightmares about the bad man. The apartment was still small, the couch still sagged, the paint still peeled near the baseboards, but it was home, and it was theirs. One evening, about a month after the hearing, Sienna was folding laundry when there was a knock at the door. She froze for just a second, old habits dying hard, but then Darius called out from the kitchen. I got it. He looked through the peephole, then opened the door to reveal Detective Raman, standing in the hallway holding a folder. Detective, Darius said, stepping aside. Come in. Raman entered, nodded politely at Sienna, and set the folder on the kitchen table. I wanted to update you in person. Sienna's stomach tightened. Is he out? No, he's still in custody. But I wanted to let you know that he waived his right to appeal. He's accepted the sentence. Sienna felt the tension drain from her shoulders. So, it's really over. It's really over. He's also been mandated to attend anger management and substance abuse counseling as part of his probation. If he violates any of the terms, he goes back to jail. No second chances. Thank you, Sienna said quietly, for everything. Raman smiled, a rare, genuine smile. You did the hard part. You fought back. A lot of people don't. I couldn't have done it without Darius. Raman looked at Darius, who was standing near the counter with his arms crossed. You did good, both of you. After Raman left, Sienna sat down on the couch and let out a long, shaky breath. Darius sat beside her and pulled her into his arms. It's really over, she whispered. Yeah, it really is. She looked up at him, her eyes shining. I couldn't have done this without you. Yes, you could have. You're stronger than you think. Maybe, but I'm glad I didn't have to. He kissed the top of her head. Me too. That night after Lily was asleep, Sienna and Darius sat on the small concrete patio behind the building, sharing a bottle of cheap wine and looking up at the stars. The city lights made it hard to see much, but they could make out a few constellations if they squinted. Can I ask you something? Sienna said. Always. Why me? Out of everyone you could have chosen, why me? Darius thought about it for a moment. You want the honest answer? Yeah. Because when I met you, I saw someone who was fighting. Not giving up, not running, just fighting. And I respected that. And then I got to know you and I saw all the other parts. The parts that are kind and funny and stubborn and scared and brave. And I realized I didn't just respect you, I liked you a lot. Sienna's eyes filled with tears. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. Loving someone isn't complicated. People make it complicated. But at its core, it's just choosing someone every day, and I choose you. I choose. She set down her wine glass and turned to face him. I love you, Darius Mitchell. He smiled. I love you too, Sienna Blake. They sat there for a long time, wrapped up in each other, letting the weight of everything that had happened settle into something softer, something manageable, something real. A few weeks later, on a random Tuesday afternoon, Darius came home from work with a package under his arm. Lily was at preschool and Sienna was folding laundry in the living room. What's that? She asked, nodding at the box. Something I made. You made a box? No, smartass. I made what's inside the box. He set it down on the coffee table and opened it. Inside was a small wooden organizer, beautifully sanded, stained a warm honey color with compartments of different sizes. Sienna stared at it. You made this? Yeah, for Lily to keep her crayons and little toys and stuff. Thought it'd help keep her room organized. Sienna's throat tightened. Darius, this is beautiful. It's not fancy, but it's sturdy. She ran her fingers over the smooth wood, feeling the care that had gone into every edge, every corner. When did you have time to make this? Nights, after you guys went to bed. I've got a little workshop space in the basement of the building. Figured I'd put it to use. Sienna looked up at him, tears spilling over. You're really in this, aren't you? Like all the way in. Yeah, I told you I was. I know, but this proves it. Good, because I've got more projects planned. Bookshelf for the living room, maybe a better table for the kitchen. I'm thinking long term here, Sienna. She laughed through her tears and threw her arms around him. I love you so much. I love you too. When Lily came home and saw the organizer, she screamed with delight and immediately started sorting her crayons by color. She spent the entire evening rearranging her room, proudly showing Darius every change she made. And this is where my giraffe sleeps, and this is where my books go, and this is where my dress-up clothes go. Darius nodded seriously. Very organized. I'm impressed. Lily beamed. I learned it from you. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, Sienna stood in the doorway of her daughter's room and watched her breathe. In and out, peaceful, safe. Darius came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. She's okay, he said softly. I know. I can't believe we're here, that we made it. You made it. I just helped. You did more than help. You saved us. No, you saved yourself. I just made sure you didn't have to do it alone. Sienna leaned back into him, letting his warmth surround her. What do we do now? We keep going. We build a life. We figure it out as we go. That simple? That simple. 3 months later, on a Saturday morning in early fall, Darius woke up before Sienna and Lily. He made coffee, sat on the couch, and pulled out his phone. He'd been thinking about something for weeks now, turning it over in his mind, weighing the timing. He opened a text thread with his best friend from high school, a guy named Andre who'd moved to Denver years ago but still checked in every few months. Darius, you still got that contact at the jeweler's? The reply came a few minutes later. Andre, yeah, why are you finally doing it? Darius, thinking about it. Andre, about time. She's good for you. Darius, yeah, she is. Andre, I'll send you his info. Go simple. Nothing flashy. That's not her style. Darius agreed. Thanks, man. Andre, proud of you, D. You deserve this. Darius set down his phone and stared at the coffee table. A ring. Marriage forever. It felt big. It felt terrifying. It also felt right. But he wasn't going to rush it. He wanted to make sure the timing was perfect, that Sienna was ready, that Lily was ready, that they were all ready. So he waited. And he planned. And he kept being the man they needed him to be. In November, Sienna got accepted into a nursing program at the local community college. She cried when she got the letter, and Darius picked her up and spun her around the kitchen while Lily cheered. I can't believe I'm doing this, Sienna said, staring at the acceptance letter. I can, Darius said. You're brilliant. You're going to be an amazing nurse. What if I can't balance school and work and Lily? Then we'll figure it out together. And they did. Darius adjusted his schedule so he could pick Lily up from preschool on the days Sienna had classes. Mrs. Chen offered to babysit when they were both working. Marissa at the diner covered shifts when Sienna needed to study. It wasn't easy. Some nights, Sienna fell asleep at the kitchen table with her textbooks open in front of her. Some mornings she cried from exhaustion and stress. But every time she thought about quitting, Darius was there, reminding her why she started. You're doing this for you, he'd say. Not for me, not for Lily, for you. Because you deserve a future you're proud of. And slowly she started to believe him. By December, the apartment on Lenox Street felt less like a place she'd landed out of necessity and more like a home she'd built on purpose. The walls were still scuffed and the couch still sagged. But there were new things too. A bookshelf Darius had built, a corkboard covered in Lily's drawings, a photo collage on the wall, pictures of the three of them at the zoo, at the park, making pancakes on Sunday mornings. Christmas came and they didn't have much money, but they made it work. Darius built Lily a wooden dollhouse from scrap lumber. Sienna knitted him a scarf, even though she'd never knitted anything in her life, and it came out lopsided. Lily made them both cards with crayons and glitter glue. They spent Christmas morning in their pajamas, drinking hot chocolate, and watching Lily play with her new dollhouse. There were no fancy presents, no extravagant meals, just the three of them together. And it was perfect. On New Year's Eve, after Lily had gone to bed, Sienna and Darius stood on the patio and watched the fireworks going off in the distance. The city was loud with celebration, but their little corner of the world felt quiet and safe. Can you believe it's been almost a year, Sienna asked, since I fixed your door, since you walked into my life and changed everything? Darius pulled her closer. Best year of my life. Mine too. What do you want for this year? Sienna thought about it. I want to finish my first semester. I want Lily to keep being happy. I want us to keep building this. Done. She laughed. You can't just say done. You don't control the universe. Watch me. He kissed her as the clock struck midnight. And in that moment, Sienna felt like everything she'd been through, all the fear, all the pain, all the struggle, had led her exactly where she was supposed to be. In February, on a random Tuesday that felt like any other day, Darius picked up Lily from preschool and took her to the park. It was cold, but the sun was out, and Lily insisted on going down the slide approximately 73 times. When she finally got tired, they sat on a bench and shared a granola bar. Darius, Lily said, swinging her legs. Yeah, kiddo. Are you gonna marry my mommy? Darius nearly choked on his half of the granola bar. What? My friend Emma's mom got married and now Emma has a new daddy. So I was wondering if you're going to be my new daddy. Darius's chest tightened. He looked down at this little girl who had claimed him as family from day one, and he felt something shift in his heart. Would you want me to be? He asked carefully. Lily nodded seriously. Yeah, you're nice and you fix things and you make mommy smile. Those are pretty good reasons. So are you? Darius smiled. I'm thinking about it. You should, because I already told Emma you're my daddy. Darius laughed and pulled her into a hug. All right, I'll work on it. That night, after Lily was asleep, Darius told Sienna about the conversation. She cried, happy tears, and told him that Lily had been asking her the same question for weeks. What did you tell her? Darius asked. I told her that people who love each other sometimes get married, but that it has to be something both people want. And that if it happens, it'll happen when the time is right. And what do you want? Sienna looked at him, her eyes shining. I want you. However that looks, whatever that means, I just want you. Good, because I want you too. He didn't propose that night, but he knew with absolute certainty that he was going to. In March, Sienna finished her first semester of nursing school with straight A's. Darius and Lily threw her a surprise celebration. Streamers from the dollar store, a cake Darius had attempted to bake himself, and a card Lily had made with the words, "My mommy is smart," written in wobbly letters. Sienna cried again. Happy tears were becoming a regular occurrence. "I'm so proud of you," Darius said, wrapping his arms around her. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yeah, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." In April, on a Saturday morning, Darius told Sienna he was taking her and Lily somewhere special. He wouldn't tell her where, just said to dress comfortably and bring a jacket. They drove for about 30 minutes out of the city and into the surrounding hills. Sienna kept asking where they were going, and Darius kept smiling and saying, "You'll see." Finally, they pulled into a small park overlooking the valley. There was a playground, a picnic area, and a walking trail that wound through the trees. "What are we doing here?" Sienna asked. "Having a picnic, and then I need to talk to you about something." Sienna's heart skipped. "What kind of something?" "The good kind, I promise." They set up at a picnic table, and Lily immediately ran off to the playground. Darius unpacked sandwiches, fruit, and juice boxes, and they ate in comfortable silence, watching Lily climb on the jungle gym. When they were done, Darius stood up and held out his hand. "Walk with me." Sienna took his hand and they walked down the trail, leaving Lily within view, but giving themselves a moment alone. The trees were just starting to bud, and the air smelled like pine and fresh earth. "Sienna," Darius said after a while, "I need to tell you something." "Okay." "When I met you, I wasn't looking for this. I wasn't looking for a relationship or a family or any of it. I was just going through the motions, and then you opened that door and everything changed." Sienna's breath caught. "Darius, let me finish. You and Lily, you've given me something I didn't even know I was missing. A purpose, a reason to be better, a home. And I don't want to imagine my life without you in it." He stopped walking and turned to face her. Then slowly he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Sienna's hands flew to her mouth. "I'm not asking you to say yes right now," Darius said. "I know we've been through a lot. I know you need time. But I want you to know that I'm all in. Completely. And when you're ready, if you're ready, I want to spend the rest of my life with you." He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver band with a small, delicate stone. Sienna's eyes filled with tears. "Darius, will you marry me?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and then he kissed her, deep and slow and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Sienna was crying and Darius was grinning like an idiot. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too." They walked back to the picnic area, hand in hand, and when Lily saw them, she ran over. "Why is Mommy crying?" "Happy tears," Sienna said, crouching down. "Darius asked me to marry him." Lily's eyes went wide. "And you said yes?" "I said yes." Lily screamed with joy and threw her arms around both of them. "Does this mean Darius is my daddy now?" Darius looked at Sienna, who nodded through her tears. Then he looked at Lily. "You want me to be?" "I do." "Then yeah, I'm your daddy." Lily hugged him so tightly he almost lost his balance. And Sienna stood there watching the two people she loved most in the world and felt like her heart might burst. They spent the rest of the day at the park, and when they finally drove home, Lily fell asleep in the back seat, clutching the stuffed giraffe Darius had fixed for her months ago. Sienna looked at the ring on her finger, then at Darius, who was driving with one hand on the wheel and the other holding hers. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For staying, for fighting, for loving us. Thank you for letting me." That night, after Lily was asleep, Sienna and Darius sat on the couch and talked about the future, about what kind of wedding they wanted, about whether they'd stay in the apartment or find something bigger, about all the little details that made up a life together. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Sienna wasn't afraid of the future, because she knew without a doubt that whatever came next, they'd face it together. 6 months later, on a warm October afternoon, Sienna Blake became Sienna Mitchell in a small ceremony at the park where Darius had proposed. There were 20 people there, friends, neighbors, Mrs. Chen, Detective Raman, Marissa from the diner, Lily served as the flower girl and took her job very seriously, throwing petals with intense focus. Sienna wore a simple white dress she'd found at a consignment shop. Darius wore the only suit he owned, which was slightly too big in the shoulders, but fit everywhere else. When the officiant asked if they had vows, Sienna went first. Darius, when you walked into my life, I was broken. I was scared. I was convinced that I had to do everything alone. But you showed me that strength isn't about doing it all by yourself. It's about letting people in. You gave me safety when I needed it most. You gave Lily a father when she needed one. And you gave me hope when I thought I'd run out. I love you. And I'm so grateful I get to spend the rest of my life with you. Darius's turn. Sienna, you're the strongest person I've ever met. And I don't mean that in some cheesy, romanticized way. I mean, you've been through hell, and you're still standing, you're still fighting, you're still showing up for your daughter every single day. And when I look at you, I don't see someone who needs saving. I see someone who's already saved herself. I'm just lucky I get to walk beside you. I love you. I love Lily. And I am all in forever. There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. They exchanged rings, kissed, and were pronounced husband and wife. Lily cheered so loudly that several birds flew out of the nearby trees. The reception was held in the community center down the street. Nothing fancy, just folding tables, a donated cake, and a playlist Darius had made on his phone. But it was full of laughter and dancing and love. At one point, Lily tugged on Darius's sleeve. "Can I call you Daddy now? Like for real?" Darius crouched down and looked her in the eyes. "You can call me whatever you want, kiddo. But yeah, I'd really like it if you called me Daddy." Lily grinned. "Okay, Daddy." And just like that, they were a family. Not because of a piece of paper or a ceremony or a ring, but because they'd chosen each other every single day through the fear and the fighting and the rebuilding. They'd chosen love. Months turned into years. Sienna graduated from nursing school and got a job at the hospital 3 blocks from their new apartment. A bigger place with 2 bedrooms and a small yard where Lily could ride her bike. Darius got his contractor's license and started his own business, taking on small renovation jobs around the city. Lily started kindergarten, made friends, and stopped asking about the bad man altogether. Life wasn't perfect. There were hard days. Days when Sienna worked a double shift and came home exhausted. Days when Darius's business was slow and money was tight. Days when Lily threw tantrums or got sick or struggled at school. But they handled it together, because that's what families do. One evening, about 3 years after the wedding, Sienna and Darius sat on the porch of their apartment while Lily played in the yard. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, and the air smelled like fresh-cut grass. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" Sienna asked. "All the time." "What do you think would have happened if you hadn't been the one to fix my door that day?" Darius thought about it. "Someone else would have fixed it, and you would have kept going, because that's who you are. But we wouldn't be here." "No, we wouldn't." Sienna rested her head on his shoulder. "I'm glad it was you." "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence, watching Lily chase fireflies as the night settled in around them. And in that moment, Sienna realized something. She wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop anymore. She wasn't afraid. She was just living, and that was enough. Years later, when Lily was older and asked her mom how she'd met her dad, Sienna would tell her the truth. About the broken doorframe, about the fear and the fighting and the man who stayed when he didn't have to. And she'd tell her that sometimes the best things in life come from the hardest moments. That strength isn't about never being scared. It's about being scared and doing it anyway. That family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who show up when it matters. But for now, in this moment, with the fireflies dancing and Lily's laughter echoing through the yard, and Darius's hand warm in hers, Sienna didn't need to say any of that. She just needed to be here, present, grateful. Home. And as the stars began to appear overhead, Sienna Blake Mitchell smiled because she'd learned something important along the way. Safety wasn't just a reinforced lock or a restraining order or a courtroom verdict. Safety was built in moments like this, in the everyday choices to show up, to stay, to love, even when it's hard. Safety was Darius fixing things, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Safety was Lily, laughing without fear. Safety was knowing that no matter what came next, they'd face it together. The apartment was still small, the walls were still imperfect, life was still messy and complicated and unpredictable, but it was theirs and it was real. And that was everything